Hello, everybody, and welcome to Spoiler Effect and our spoiler chat about Avengers Endgame. I'm David Lotz. Joining me for this is Michelle Hillard.
Hey.
What's up,
hey.
Michelle?
Hey.
Hey. There we're in two places, not only on the audio podcast, but we are also taping this for YouTube for the first time.
Yay, YouTube.
So, you can check this out on YouTube if you're listening to the podcast. And by the way, this podcast is available on Apple Podcasts. It is basically available wherever you listen to podcasts. If you use a podcast app, just search for Spoiler Effect. You should be able to find us. These are also on Spotify.
Nice. We're on all the things.
We're all in all the things.
Nice.
So the big weekend has arrived.
It has.
And Avengers Endgame is here. And I'm going to say it one more time before we get into this. We are going to be talking about spoilers for Avengers Endgame. If you're watching on YouTube, there will be a spoilers somewhere on the bottom of the screen. Basically, the entire episode. Just in case you happen upon our video. Yeah. And to be very clear, we're going to be talking about spoilers for Avengers Endgame. So if you haven't watched the movie, do not watch this. Do not listen to this. Go and see the movie first. Please come back and check out the show then. Yeah.
But yeah, spoilers.
Spoilers.
Heavy spoilers.
With that, Avengers Endgame.
I really want to. I'm dying to know what you thought of this film.
You're dying to know why?
Because and I'm saying this, and it's not true for me as well. But you're just You've loved the Marvel Studios, Marvel Cinematic Universe for, since its incarnation. And this has been 10 years building, 20 films. Like, it's a big thing. And I've been curious to see how it's been hard because I've, been around you in the past few days. And yeah, I gotta know what you think.
So we've seen the movie twice.
Yeah.
And this basically almost never happens for me. I always like the idea of seeing a movie a couple times before we do flicker effect, before we do spoiler effect. But yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of things going on in life, 2 kids. It's just a lot of times it doesn't happen. But this weekend it did. Actually, at one point I had tickets for 3 different showings. I didn't intend on going to 3 different showings. That was just because of the jumble F that was the ticket sales.
Right.
But yeah, ended up having tickets for Thursday night. We saw it opening night, and we actually saw it early this morning at 8 a.m. Mm-hmm. That's, I wouldn't say the first time I've been to a movie at 8 a.m., I don't think, but it's first time in a while I've been to a movie that early.
It's been a while since I've been to the theater before 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you saying this like you want me to chat about this first?
Oh, I gotta know what you think about Endgame. I gotta know.
You gotta know.
I do.
Well, I won't get too much into the movie, like too spoilery yet, because I'm gonna want to hear your opinion as well. But I enjoyed the movie quite a bit.
You enjoyed the movie quite a bit.
So did you want me to say I loved the movie more than anything on the planet? Is that what disappoints you about that statement?
No, it's just I enjoyed the movie quite a bit.
No, I love the movie. The movie's great. I'm really glad I saw this movie twice. And if there are things I'm going to point out about the movie that I bumped on as I watched it, those are things that I definitely bumped on the first showing. And honestly, after the second showing, I was definitely curious going into the second showing. Like, am I going to just absolutely love it now after the second showing and I'm not going to care about those things, or I won't have a problem with it anymore? Or will I dislike this after the second showing? Will these things bother me more? And those things didn't necessarily get fixed for me in the second showing. Like, they're still there. I think just with the second showing, I found that I just wasn't bothered by them as much.
Okay,
and they're still a thing for me. But with that said, the movie works. It's entertaining. I was happy to go see it a second time, only a couple days after my first showing, and I can't say that for a lot of movies. But that also wasn't hard to do with this movie because there's just so much This movie
Yeah.
is a lot to deal with. And I had to see it again just because I needed to almost even remember certain things about it. And honestly, I could go and watch it again like tomorrow if I wanted to, if I could. I mean, I'm not going to, but part of me actually now wants to step away from a little bit, and I could imagine seeing it one more time while it's still in theaters, but not for maybe like a couple weeks or something.
Right.
You know, and this movie will be in theaters for
It's going to be in theaters for a while.
who knows how long, but yeah, I could go see it again. This movie, I think, excels at the end, that last hour.
I agree.
The ending of this movie is, I think, is fantastic. That's how good I think the ending is. First hour, second hour, that's a whole another story. Not saying it's bad, but I wouldn't call those parts of the movie weren't necessarily fantastic for me. But overall, I loved Avengers Endgame. I've struggled with asking myself, like, did I like Infinity War more? I think so.
Really?
Yeah, I liked Infinity War quite a bit.
Okay.
But that's also, I think, a question that's tough still for me to answer. That's early yet. Endgame is fresh. And I think it's hard to kind of do a comparison. I mean, I do have an opinion, and I can share at some point during the show, what I still think is probably the best movie in the MCU so far. And I don't think it's Endgame. But I liked Endgame a lot. I'm also very happy that we saw it opening night and not just this morning.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that in a little
minute.
bit. But what did you think of the movie?
So I'm gonna go ahead and go on the limb. I loved it like a lot, and I admit I have issues with it. Like there's stuff for me in the first hour that didn't work well, and there's things in that second hour that still didn't work as well either. And then, yeah, the third hour is just it is fantastic. This movie had a lot to wrap up into a box. Like it had a lot of little like loose ends to kind of bring to a close, and I think it did a really great job of it. And I think it gave the fans what they needed for closure of the story and moving on with next phases and newer ways, without being too in your face about it for the most part, and we'll go back to that here in a little bit. But overall, I loved it. It is easily in my top 5 of the MCU films. And if I sat and thought about it for a while, which I haven't, but I could see it moving into the top 3. But it's definitely not. I will say it's still not my favorite MCU film. But it is up there. It is easily up there.
It sounds like you definitely liked it more than Infinity War.
I did like it more than
just
Infinity
based on
War.
your reaction to my saying that.
Yeah.
I get that impression.
No, I liked it more than Infinity War.
Right.
I had issues with Infinity War. And not to say I didn't like Infinity War. I really do. I enjoy Infinity War a lot. I just remember coming out of that film having more issues with it than I did with this one. So yeah, I liked it a lot. I was very happy. But I will say, so we'll talk about our movie theater experience. So that first showing that we saw at 10:30 on Thursday night, basically it's a bunch of fanboys.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my other friends, coworkers and such, whenever I talk about seeing movies like this on an opening night, I get the very typical reaction of, oh man, it's going to be crazy and it's going to be so packed, and I'm going to wait for like a week or two till things die down. And I get that opinion if you're just not that excited about these movies. But
Yeah.
I also feel like there's certain people that say that I know love, like Marvel movies. And I am somewhat surprised by that reaction too, because for me, yeah, it's busy. But we live in a day and age now where we have reserved seats, so it's not like you have to worry about getting there like 3 hours early to make sure you get a good seat.
Right.
Like you can walk in as the trailers start or as the trailers are ending and still have your seat. But anyway, it's just that experience of seeing a movie like this opening night. I don't think there's nothing like it. I love that experience.
Yeah.
And also because with a movie like this too, you know me, I love these Marvel movies, but I don't have like a big Marvel comics background. So if anything, I get to experience some of these little like references without even knowing what they are, just because of the way people react. It makes it exciting even for me. And sometimes I'm a little, they're lost on me because I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is. But just the way people react, it's still exciting to watch. So yeah, that 10:30 showing, and I mean, that wasn't even the first showing. The first showings were like 6 or 7.
Yeah, they were like 6:30 or 7, yeah.
And yeah, we ended up with a 10:30 IMAX showing. And
IMAX.
Yeah, Limax. But
and we'll get into that too, because we saw 2 different versions. Basically, we saw the Limax, and then we saw Dolby Digital.
Dolby Cinema, yeah. And yeah, that I'm really happy we saw it Thursday night, because that showing was crazy. Like, those people were crazy pumped.
They were pumped, and I'll be honest, I loved it.
Yeah, no, it was awesome.
Like, if I'm gonna go opening night to go see a film that has such a big fan base, like, I want that energy in the room. I mean, we walked in, and it was well, everybody, you could tell everybody was just giddy. Like, everybody was just like, okay, when are the trailers going to start? When are we going to do this? Like, people were ready to get into this film.
Right.
I mean, at one point I was just kind of like, honestly, if they didn't even show trailers, that's fine. Like, we could just jump into the film. Oh, yeah. Super cool with it. Like, I just wanted to see.
We knew that wasn't going to happen, but yeah, absolutely.
I know, but I was like wishful thinking. But no, it's nice. Like, people say, yeah, it's all crazy and busy and it's so packed, and I'm like, yeah, but that's part of the fun. That's part of the experience, honestly. And you know, no, we didn't get to sit dead center in the theater like we usually like to do, but we had really good seats, and we were surrounded by other people that are fanning out basically about everything. And yeah, everybody's excited, and people were clapping and cheering when the film started, and people were cheering at different moments, and there was audible group simultaneous gasps at some moments, like, and I loved it, because it was like, oh my god, it's not just me that's going, holy crap. Like, everybody else is thinking, holy crap, or oh my god, this is awesome. And I love that. I love the crowd's reaction, because I'm like, yep, we're not crazy. We all think the same things. We're all thinking the same awesome thing is happening. Or, oh my God, we're all thinking the same earth-shattering thing is happening. Right. Or, you know, and it's nice. It's fun.
Yeah, no, it was fun. And there was a point in that craziness that was ticket sales for Endgame that I thought we weren't going to see it till Saturday morning. And I'm so glad that that's not what happened, because even though I love seeing it a second time today, and I loved our Dolby Cinema experience, that audience this morning couldn't have been almost any more different from our audience Thursday night. Different. Like, they were just almost lifeless. And not to say they didn't enjoy it. I could tell they did. Right. And I mean, I think the 8 a.m. thing could also come into play here. Yeah. But still, like, there were moments in the movie, for instance, I mean, we're talking about spoilers, that moment at the end of the film that easily got the biggest reaction when Captain America gets Mjolnir. And I mean, at Thursday night, I mean, and it wouldn't have mattered where we were sitting in the theater, we would have heard him, but he was literally right behind us. Yeah. And this dude stood up, and I guess you must have kind of turned around and seen him. I could kind of see him. But I didn't turn around and look at him, but man, his reaction was just utter insanity when that happened.
I mean, I'm talking standing and fist pumps, leaning over the other row, like almost falling into the row with excitement at this moment. And mind you, at the same time, I fist pumped. I stayed seated, but I was like, yes! Like, it was this moment, everybody just, oh my God, we're going to see this happen. We're going to see Cap pick up Mjolnir. Like, we could feel it, and we were waiting, and we're like, this is actually going to happen in front of our eyes. Right. And everybody was just, it was like pure joy was pouring out of seats at that point towards the screen, and it was awesome.
Yeah, so, and it's not like he was the only guy. I mean, there was a ton of reactions throughout the theater. His was definitely the craziest. Most vocal. But there was the whole theater just went insane.
There was clapping.
And the theater today, there was a bit of a reaction to it, but it was like a little bit of clapping, I think, or something. It was, I think,
like, there was a few like, oh, yeah, like almost like, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Like, oh my gosh, Cap was picking it up. Like, it was like almost surprise. Whereas we all figured out quickly what was happening, and we're like, this is the moment we've been waiting for. Like, I don't know. It was just different. It was kind of, I was almost like, I didn't really, nobody else.
Yeah, no, the theater today was, it was interesting. I was so happy it was not our first experience.
I would have been disappointed, honestly.
Yeah, I'm curious because we'll be recording our Flicker Effect show tomorrow, and we'll get to talk to Bobby and Yasha about it. And I know Yasha didn't get to see it, I think, until today.
He just saw it today.
So I'll be curious to hear what his Saturday experience was like.
Yeah.
And then that's the thing, too. Every theater is different. There could have been Saturday showings today here in Orlando that were insane, and ours just happened to be kind of dead.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the Thursday night showing that we saw, the moment where Cap stands up and you can hear Sam over the comm, and then everybody realizes it's Sam, and then he says, "On your left." Again, the audience, our theater just erupted. Everybody was just like, this is happening. Like, it was the whole, it was everybody
Like,
just
they're
like,
all coming back.
everybody was like, yes. And then, like, you see the, Doctor Strange's wheel open up, this golden circle, whatever you want to call it, and T'Challa comes out with his sister, and everybody's just like, yes, yes. And everybody's just slowly kind of trying not to get too crazy, but you could tell, like, the tension in the room, the excitement level, like, everybody was like, just watching the screen and seeing everything open up, and everybody was just like, this is it. This is happening. We're going to see this happen. And then this morning, that whole moment, again, this morning was kind of a letdown. Like, this is a huge moment. You hear Sam's voice over the comm, and he says, he goes, "On your left," which is a huge thing between him and Cap. And there's just silence. And then, like, the the portal opens, T'Challa and his sister kind of walk out, and they were basically full lit by the time I think people in the audience kind of started going, oh, okay, this has happened. Like, it was this slow, like, it was a few people, but even then it wasn't very many. It was probably like 4 people, 5 people.
Yeah.
Like, I could basically pick them out in the audience. And I'm like, man, you guys need some more coffee or something. Like, this is exciting stuff.
It was funny. But then at the same time, like, the audience this morning did clap at, like, a point in the credits that I felt like, the audience Thursday night didn't. It kind of goes back and forth, I guess. But definitely for the most part this morning, it was
weird. It was
dead
an interesting
and kind
experience.
of odd. But anyway, I'm glad, we saw it Thursday night.
So, did you like the Dolby version better? Like, or did you like the IMAX version?
I mean, the Dolby version versus the IMAX version, in a lot of ways, wasn't really any different for me. I mean, the Dolby cinema is just in general a more comfortable theater to sit in, at least at our theater, and yeah, the projection is always pretty much spot on, perfect. I think there's been once or twice in there it wasn't quite right, but for the most part it's always been almost perfect. The sound in there is always great, and IMAX is always good too. I mean, yeah, if I had to pick one or the other, I'd pick Dolby. But
yeah, I thought the Dolby was definitely. I thought it was crisper. I thought the imagery was crisper, and I just thought the sound was just a lot better.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, there's even this moment, it's the very end, and Pepper is asking Friday something, and I remember being in the IMAX and really not hearing what Friday says. I mean, I heard it, but I didn't hear it very well. I had to, like, listen for it. And then this morning in the Dolby, it was just crystal clear, the whole thing, that whole portion of the scene that played out. And I was just kind of like, there's a difference in the sound, like, for me.
So it's funny that you bring that up, though, because that does remind me of one question I had for you, and that is the dialogue. Like, in general, I want to say both showings. So I don't think it was a matter of the theater. I think it was the mix. I noticed there were times, especially Tony Stark talking, that I had a hard time understanding, like, because he speaks quickly a lot of times, and he was speaking softly. Just, there were times I felt like throughout the movie, not just his dialogue, but everybody's dialogue, I felt like the dialogue sat a little low in the mix. And I found myself making sure I was really tuning in to what characters were saying when I don't feel like I should have to be doing that. Did you have that experience or not?
I feel like I thought the mix was a little low. I think especially Robert Downey. And part of me was kind of like, oh, is it just because the character of Tony Stark now has come down a little bit. Like, he's more to earth in a way. Like, he's more honed in at that point. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, he's like, there's basically, when we see Tony, he's at the lowest point ever, and then he's better, but he is more grounded in life. And so I'm wondering if that's part of it, the performance. But
Right.
I think my big thing was, I felt like, and it seemed to happen a lot on Robert Downey, is I thought that the music would swell up over their what they were saying, like over the vocalizations, and I was like, I'd hear the music playing almost too high, and then the volume of their speech was too low. I'm like, wait, what? I was having a hard time hearing things. Like, the music would come, certain notes, or almost like crescendos. I don't know anything about music, but anyways, like
get what
there'd
you're
be
saying.
points where I would be like, wait, what did they just say? Because I didn't hear them. I heard the music,
Right.
and I was like, I feel like this. The mix is. It seemed off to me.
Right.
I will agree.
Okay.
It's one of those things, like, next year at Oscar time, if they get sound mixing, I'll be like, I'll throw things at the wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, no.
So yeah, the movie. I'll say first, yeah, I mean, there's no doubt my favorite part of the movie is the ending of this movie. I think the ending is handled incredibly well,
Yeah.
considering that this movie definitely takes the road of trying to do the best job it can of wrapping up what this franchise has done since
Yeah.
it began with Iron Man. And I mean, I enjoyed the ending the first time, but I think now that I was able to watch it a second time and kind of know what was coming and really take in more detail, I love the ending of this movie.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt emotionally it affected me way more than it probably should have, as you witnessed this morning.
Yeah.
I haven't cried like that in a movie, I don't know in how long. And I say that, and actually today I think I did a good job of like really like containing it, because the theater was so damn quiet. And
Yes.
there was moments in the ending when I was like, man, if I break down, people are going to be like, what is wrong with that guy? But I mean, for me, it started, of course, with the moment when Tony Stark has done what he's done and, snapped his finger, and now he's going to die. And his performance in that moment, where really he's not saying much of anything now,
No.
because he's basically done. He's still alive, but he's done. I mean, Robert Downey Jr.'s performance there is perfect.
It is. It's really good.
And then
It's really good.
Pepper Potts coming over, how she talks to him, just perfect. Like, that is when it starts. But especially, the whole just relationship between him and his daughter, and him talking to his daughter and the message. And man, this morning I was dreading that scene, which I had already seen in the first showing, of course, with, Jon Favreau talking to the daughter on the porch. Just the two of them was just gut wrenching. And I'm sitting there watching the scene, where they're on the lake and the camera's panning, kind of traveling through all the different characters. And I'm like, oh God, it's coming on next. Oh God, I'm not going to be able to do this. It was bad. And then I got through it, but you saw, we walked out of the theater and I got to the car and I broke down. And this was after the movie was over. I'm like, no, the ending is fantastic. I love the way they handle the ending with him passing. It's perfect. He's the character his movie started all of this.
Yes.
But also the way Cap's ending is handled is great too.
Yeah.
Especially considering he's the first Avenger, and then the movie really ends on that shot with him and her dancing. Also perfect. I will say, when it gets to the movie, has an interesting take on time travel, which I like a lot, actually.
Yes.
And I'm bringing this up because if there's any smidgen of a thing I bumped on with Cap's ending, I feel like with the rules we're given, that doesn't quite make sense for me. But with that said, it's not enough to really bother me. I still love that ending. I still love how he comes back as an old man. He decided to basically stay in the past with her. That's great. Don't get me wrong.
Right. No, it's fabulous. And the thing is it's so funny. It's like basically, you know, he says goodbye to Bruce and then he says goodbye to Sam. And in that moment I'm like, oh God, he's not coming back. Like it was quick. Like it was this moment of instant, he's not coming back. Like
Right.
I was like, he's not coming back. Like I know, I'm like, he's staying with Peggy. Like he's not coming back. And then like he says goodbye to Bucky and he gets on the platform and you're just waiting for them to have this epiphany of he's not coming back. And you're just watching the scene play out and Sam's getting upset and then Bucky like turns and I'm just like,
But Bucky knows like immediately. You can tell
it clicked.
it clicked for him very fast.
It clicked for him. I think it was the way he said goodbye to him. I think Bucky knew in his goodbye to him. He was like, oh yeah, this is.
So he turns knowing he knows exactly what he did.
Yeah.
So as soon as
But I love that.
But then as soon as he sees him down by the lake, he knows exactly who it is.
Yep.
And you can tell, Sam takes a second for it to
Right.
click.
For it all to click in his
Right.
head. And I love that. I love that it wasn't so instantaneous for him and the passing of the torch or the shield, as you say.
Right.
And again, the first showing, everybody was just like, oh my gosh, we're watching Cap pass the shield. Like, this is happening. Like, this. And it's been a thing. It's who's he going to give it to? Is he going to give it to. Because Bucky at one point in the comics has it, and
Right.
Sam's had. Like, we're like, well, who's he going to give it to first? Is he going to give it to Bucky or is he going to give it to Sam? Like, it was kind of up in the air. I think for people who are. I know a little bit about the comics. I don't know as much. And maybe it would have been clearer to people that are really in the comic. But I was kind of like, oh, who's he gonna give it to? And then as soon as Bucky is like, you go ahead, I was like, oh my God, he's gonna give it to Sam.
Right.
This is gonna be so cool. Like I was geeking out. I had some serious geek out moments throughout the films. Yeah.
What did you? I'm gonna jump around, but
No, that's cool.
What did you think of Hulk in this?
Okay. Here's some issues. Here's
Okay.
where the issues kick in. I feel like Bruce as a whole is very inconsistent throughout the film. But then I also just don't think I like this visual of the mixture of Hulk and Bruce together.
So I mean,
It's
first when you
weird.
say he's inconsistent, what do you mean?
So when you first see him, they're at the diner having breakfast. His personality is really kind of altered in a way. Like Bruce is not a person that is like. Bruce used to be a very humble person, and he's clearly not as much anymore. And that's fine. But then as the movie goes on, he starts getting more humble again. Like, I feel like it was this back and forth of this with him throughout the whole, most of the film. And I was just kind of like, so is he more comfortable in his skin, or is he faking the comforter in his skin throughout the whole film? Do you know what I mean? And by the end, he's kind of more Bruce than he's Hulk. I don't know. It was just kind of an interesting thing to watch. But I will say visually, though, it's funny because even they were making fun of it in the whole diner scene. Like, so this is happening.
So you're not, and then to be clear, so you're not saying visually like as an effect, but you mean just the visual of like Hulk being this way, like how he's
It's
just
weird.
a normal guy and he's talking totally normally.
It's weird.
That's what you mean, right?
I think it visually looks weird, and then just the idea of it is weird. Like, I think the whole thing is weird. Does that make sense?
But I mean, I guess I want to make sure I understand. Are you saying you think it looks like as an effect it's not done well?
At times.
Okay.
But also, I just think it just looks weird. Like, it just needs to be Hulk or it just needs to be Bruce. And then, like, the mesh is weird. Like, the face is weird. Like, it's weird. It's weird for
And
me.
then as someone who, again, not the Marvel guy, like I at first, like knowing what I know about him and Hulk, and when it first comes up in that diner scene in that first showing, I was like, oh, so this is what's happening. Like, this is interesting.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought it was great. And I will say the inconsistency you're talking about, I definitely did not bump on. I didn't notice that. But in terms of just how the character is handled like that, he's just fun to watch though. Like, maybe it's kind of weird just because we don't get to experience Bruce just as Bruce, other than that scene with Tilda Swinton's character, Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
Other than that, we don't really get to see him just as himself. It's basically always as Hulk, or whatever you call yourself at that point. I don't know. Just still Hulk. Anyway, Hulk.
It's Hulk.
I don't know. He's fun. He was fun in the movie. I like his personality. Overall, I really liked it. But I could see that it would bother people, and I don't know if that's ever how he's been in the comics. If Hulk has ever just talked like that.
I don't know. I think I prefer more Hulk Ragnarok Hulk. Like him, I think even visually just in Ragnarok, like his face even just seemed better form. I don't know. I liked it better, but I will have to agree. Like I will say there's moments where Bruce is much more comfortable, like kind of being silly and being okay with being silly. You know, I don't know. I'm mixed on Hulk. Overall, visually, it's weird to look at for me.
Oh, no, I liked it a lot.
No,
I'm surprised.
But yeah, I think, there's just some of the things where he's like, "Hey, it's a success!" Like at the end of the trial with Ant-Man, and he's like, "Time travel," and they're just like, "No," a lot of no happening here. So I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, I'm with you though on the daughter scene. Like,
at the end.
Going
back to the ending.
So first of all, I'm a big crier. I cry at everything. And it is really sad that so early in the film, I wound up crying. Like, I wound up crying the moment, and it's coming. Scott Pym runs to the house where Cassie lives, or Scott Lang, excuse me, runs to the house where Cassie lives, and she comes out, and she's like 15 years old. She's a teenager. And he sees her, and that moment, it got me the first showing, and it got me the second showing, and I knew it was happening, and it was just like I didn't cry, but I teared up, like a tear rolled down, I couldn't keep it in, I was like, man, it's just, and I think it's a lot to do with Paul Rudd's face when the camera pans to him, you can just see him, I don't know, he's sad, but he's just so happy at the same time, you could tell it's that moment of, just missed 5 years of her growing up to be this person, and I missed that, but she's here and I'm here, and that's all that matters. You could tell it's this moment of sadness, and then also just huge relief at the same time, and you see it in his face, and it just kills me. I'm like, oh, right now I'm thinking about it, it's getting me going. Seriously, kills me. And then I'm good for most of the movie until that last 30 minutes of the film, and then I'm just screwed. I was just on and off with tears. It was a thing. It was bad. It was bad. I cried.
I'm sorry.
It was good. They're good tears. It was good, happy tears. Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was, I thought, a great moment. And I definitely, both times, I didn't react to it the way it sounds like you did.
I cried everything.
And that brings up, too, I mean, this week before we got to see it Thursday night, obviously the world premiere was Monday night, I believe it was. Yeah. And then, we were basically seeing, reactions, social media reactions that night. The next morning when I got up was the first time I saw any. And I was seeing reactions. I'd even listened to one brief podcast that kind of did just a kind of a reaction review, didn't really give any details because nobody's spoiling it. And I mean, I've heard a lot of reactions of this particular person talked about he'd cried multiple times throughout the movie. And I mean, especially with my first showing, I mean, other than the ending, there's definitely things I emotionally reacted to, but nothing that brought me to tears. I was watching it the first time going, I mean, this is cool. I mean, it's a good movie, but what was everybody crying at? I mean, other than maybe that moment you're talking about, that I could definitely see.
I mean, I'll tell you where I started tearing up. I was having overjoyed moments of tears.
Right.
A lot of it's, a lot of stuff with Captain Marvel and all the women coming together and just seeing them be so badass. It was just oh, finally, I mean, we've seen them be badass in the other films, and even in Infinity War, they have some good major moments, but it was just this moment where you saw all of them come together, and it was just like, oh, like, it's a big thing for girls to see that. Oh, it gets me now. Look, there I go.
Yeah, I see that.
So, I mean, there's moments it gets me emotional, but I'm gonna cry. I cried everything. So,
Right. So, okay, you bring up Captain Marvel.
okay.
I was going to ask you about that too, because I will say, we talked about Brie Larson's performance as Captain Marvel
Right.
in her movie. And, even leading up to that, we had talked about it over on Flickr Effect. Like, oh, how's her performance going to be? Because even in the trailer, her performance seems kind of
Right.
almost like stilted. It seems,
Right.
I don't know, interesting. And I mean, we actually on that podcast, we all kind of had different reactions to it. I know Bobby was actually pretty happy with her performance, but I still found it to be kind of like, I was unsure about like how, again, stilted her performance seemed in Captain
Right.
Marvel throughout the movie. And then this movie, I gotta say, like, I'm still left going, I'm curious about the way she is handling her character. And again, I say her, maybe it's the way the directors are handling her character.
Yeah.
I say this, and actually I really like her performance. It worked for me in the beginning of the movie when she is with the group at the headquarters, and she has that moment she's like gonna leave and she's like, I'm gonna go kill Thanos, and like all of her dialogue there actually I thought was really good and worked for me. But then there's other scenes, like, I mean, it's brief, but like when they're right after the moment where we've jumped forward 5 years and they're having this kind of Skype meeting basically with Black Widow. And even just the way she kind of carries herself and looks at the other characters, I find it weird. I don't know why. Like, there's something about it, the way she talked to Rocket, and there's still something that just feels cold and odd about it to me.
See, and I don't think it was cold so much. It was almost like she was looking down on them in a way.
Yeah.
And that's the way that moment came off to me. And I think it's because, and at the same time, I also kind of get it, because she even said, she's like, okay, guys, I'm sorry if I'm harsh or I'm not there all the time, but the whole universe is going through the exact same situation. And the rest of the universe doesn't even have you. So maybe cut me a little slack here. I'm doing a lot. I'm covering a lot of ground.
No, and I get that, but I still feel like
it comes out like she's talking down to them.
It does.
Like
there's one thing to say, hey, I you don't need my help because other people need my help more. But then she does come across like, I'm basically the badass, and she is. Don't get me wrong,
she is.
And that's another thing too, like with the ending with her and the way her character's handled. I mean, again, it's not the kind of thing that really bothers me, but there is, you see her and she's basically a missile ripping through ships. So of course, for me, as I'm watching a movie and I feel like, why doesn't she just basically shoot herself through a hole in Thanos? Like, I don't see why he would even be able to stop that, without holding an Infinity Gauntlet. I mean, yes, he's big and powerful, but I mean, she can rip through a massive ship.
I know. It's almost like it's this weird inconsistency in the whole situation.
It seems like an inconsistency to me. I mean, yeah, there's that moment he kind of like hits her, headbutts her in the head, and she just doesn't even flinch. Just like,
that was awesome.
But that's what I mean. Like that, the fact that she can do that, like not even react to a hit by him, but yet like, I don't know, like why not just basically rip right through him? He's dead. Like she seems like she's that powerful, but then,
right.
For the purposes of action in this movie, I mean, I get it, but it's
right.
one of those things when you see how powerful she can be, it's hard to be like, oh, well, why doesn't she could end this
I'm
like
with
that?
you. No, I'm with you. It's a conflicting thing. And at the same time, though, I love watching her rip through ships.
I do too.
Like,
I mean, her appearance at the end when suddenly they start shooting toward her and you don't know who it is yet, but obviously you quickly realize it's her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's awesome.
No, it's this really amazing moment. And I was just like, finally, she's like during the whole battle scene, I was kind of going, okay, when's the girl gonna show off. Like, I was just waiting for it. And she did. And I was like, oh, finally, it's that moment. And she just starts ripping through the ship. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Right.
You know, and I even love, you know, when she gets up to Peter and he's holding the gauntlet and he's just trying to figure out what to do. And he's nervous and scared and he's not knowing what's happening. And he's just like, I'm Peter Parker. And she's just like, hi, Peter Parker.
You got something for me? Yeah, and that worked
I
for
love
me
that
totally.
scene.
I love
I
that
love
moment
that moment.
between him and her. Yes,
I love that moment. She's just like, I got this, kid. You take a break. I'll handle from here.
Right.
You know, it was such a good moment, you know, and then like, I don't know. I really liked her performance. I loved her battling Thanos one-on-one. I like that she was holding the gauntlet and he literally punched her and she didn't flinch. I was just like, this is awesome. And he had to take the Power Stone out to even hit her hard enough to get her off of him. Like, I'm like,
which was an awesome moment.
it was an awesome moment. I'm like,
Right.
He took the Power Stone so he could hit her. Like,
Right.
that's amazing. And there's so many things that I loved about this film. We really haven't talked about the battle scene, but honestly, that battle scene was freaking amazing. Just freaking amazing. Like, you know, Sam saying on your left and T'Challa coming out and then the others, you know, portals opening and everybody coming out. I was just like, just joy is filling my heart. I'm like, this is going to be so awesome. I don't know if that's what was happening in your body, but I was just sitting here going,
there's no doubt, like I said,
giddy.
basically that last hour, once the time traveling portion kind of ends,
Yeah.
that from there on out is almost perfect.
Yeah. God, it was so good to watch. I love watching Valkyrie fly around.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh no, it's great. I mean, if anything,
amazing.
maybe it could be argued it's almost too much, but I mean, it's too much of a good thing. And that's a good thing. I mean,
you're seeing all of your characters and even all the extra characters and everybody's coming in to fight this battle, and it's just so good. And I even love the way it, and I think I got to take it in that moment more even today on the second viewing, as you know, Cap goes assemble and they all start charging. I love the way it almost slows down, not slow-mo, but it slows down and it pans out and you really see you could literally see every single Avenger and they are all going at it. I was like, this is an awesome shot. Like, it was just done.
The splash page shot.
Yes, it was done so well because there are so many people. But the way they came in, it was done really well. I liked that all so much. And I really get to enjoy it more today on the second showing than I did the other night. Because I think the other night I was just so freaking excited it was happening.
Right.
And today I actually got to really visually take it in even more.
Right.
And I liked that a lot. It was pretty sweet. And I just like all the little like nods to weird things, you know, like Spider-Man, like, because he does it in Homecoming, but he didn't mean to do it. And he's like, activate instant kill.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, he says it and you're like, this is gonna be great. And he just starts killing all the little alien guys really fast. And you're like, this because he even says in Homecoming, he's like, when would you use this? And it was like, this is when you would use this button. Like, that's exactly when you'd use it. And I liked that. I liked those moments happening. It was pretty awesome.
So other than just, obviously you love the movie, you enjoyed the movie.
Obviously.
But going into the movie, I mean, as much as maybe a lot of us try to not have too big of expectations, I think we all find ourselves as fans thinking about, so how are they going to handle this? Like, the snap happened at the end of Infinity War. How is this going to play out? I don't know. So, like, what kind of expectations did you have? Do you feel like do you like how they handled it?
So, I'll be honest. I think because I wasn't over the moon with Infinity War, and I was in some aspects even let down by it a little bit, I think my expectations for Endgame were actually really low. Like, crazy low. Like, I was honestly kind of going into it going, I'm excited. There's going to be a battle. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to like any of this. And I was actually really concerned going into this movie.
Really?
I was actually very concerned going into this movie.
Had you seen any reactions going in?
No, I stayed away from it because I was like, I don't want to now build myself up. and then be let down by it. At this point, I'm like, I'm hoping I'm going to enjoy this film, and I don't know if I will. And I went into it pretty low, and honestly, I'm really glad I did.
So you're overall really happy with the way they handled it?
I am, honestly. I think they handled it really well. It's as gut-wrenching, and here's a moment I cried. Black Widow dies. Like,
right.
I was, it was this, and, you know, as soon as, it was just funny, as soon as I realized it was going to be Black Widow and Hawkeye going to Vormir, I was like, oh, shit. Black Widow's going to die. Like, it's, like, you know that's what's going to happen. Like, you know that's what's going to happen. She's not going to let Clint die. Like, you know she's not going to let Clint die.
I mean, especially considering the way the movie started.
Yeah, this whole thing was about getting Clint and his family back. Like, for her, that is the most important thing. Like, I was like, oh, God, she's going to die. Like, once you realized it was them going, I was like, oh, she's going to die. Oh, wow. This is... Right. We're going to watch this. And so, my point is even with Black Widow dying, and I think Tony dying, as heartbreaking as it is, I think was the best way to wrap it up. Overall, I'm very happy with the way they ended everything. I like the way they were able to pull Gamora back into it, and I think it's gonna be really great for Guardians 3. Like, it's good. I'm very happy with the way they tied it all up.
Yeah, I bring it up because, again, I love the movie. I loved Endgame. I very much enjoy watching this movie. I mean, yeah, do I somewhat wish maybe they handled the movie and the way handled like fixing the events of Infinity War differently? I kind of do. I don't say I have an answer to how to do it.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, like, what?
I'm not saying I'm the storyteller that has a great idea. I'm just saying that there's certain aspects about the way they did handle it that I'm like, I don't know. I feel like something could have been done differently. Like, one, I mean, I don't feel like it, how to put this? The fact that we're not fighting the same Thanos actually, I feel like takes something away from it for me emotionally. Again, he's still Thanos, and yes, he still would have done the same thing had people not time traveled back and, you know, had changed his outlook on like, oh wait, what's going on here? Like, he's the same guy, of course, I get it.
I think he's even more of a dick now.
He is,
because for him it was like this whole destiny with like unfolded for him, and so at some point I feel like he's even more of a dick.
There's something about the fact that he's still not the same Thanos that actually performed the act of Infinity War that I feel like somewhat separates this Thanos from that event.
Like, he didn't earn it. I
don't know if earn it's the right way to put it.
Because the other Thanos, he earned getting the Infinity. Like, he fought for them. Like, he went through things to get those stones, and then like he fought them even, and like he's.
No, that's not what I'm getting at. I get what you're saying now. No, what I'm getting at is, yes, the battle at the end is amazing. This guy is an asshole, and it's amazing to watch everyone kill him. It's great.
Yeah.
Please don't get me wrong here. But I feel like it doesn't have the same emotional impact if it had been the same Thanos that had snapped every half of the universe out of existence. I know what you're saying. That's what I mean. And yes, when the movie opens and we quickly see him die, like, I don't know how you reacted to that. I was definitely reacted to like, oh, okay. And I mean, there's no doubt I was sitting there going, well, there's no way that's the last we see of Thanos in this movie.
Right. I
mean, it piqued my curiosity. I'm like, that would be interesting if this was the last we saw. That
what
Thanos was not in the rest of this film. If anything, that would have just been interesting to see how they would have handled that, and maybe that would have been kind of cool. But no, that's not what happened, and they get their moment to destroy Thanos. Mm-hmm. But still, I feel like it just doesn't quite have the same impact. As awesome as the impact is, it's not quite the same as if it had been that same guy. That if this movie had not involved like him, he had already destroyed the stones, and there was an interesting kind of story to figure out how they were going to get them from him or something. I don't know. I'm not saying I have an answer to this, but it's that separation between now we have this other Thanos from another timeline that they're battling.
It's not as satisfying because it's not the same Thanos that they've spent the last 5.5 years fighting, or well, really longer. Honestly,
Right.
For,
It's
it
just
goes back to Guardians basically. So it's not the same Thanos. They've literally been fighting for 10 years.
that's something that kind of I wish could have been handled differently. That's one, and I'm saying nitpicky stuff at this point. But I mean, as storytelling goes, I kind of wish it could have been him and not this other timeline Thanos. Is all I'm saying. And there's other little things too. Like, I mean, I love the way this movie opens with Hawkeye and his family.
Yeah.
It's really hard to watch. It takes
It
you.
is hard to watch.
It pulls you right back to the ending of Infinity War, which was a really emotional moment. No matter what you think of Infinity War,
No,
I'm not saying you, just anyone in general. And it pulls you right back in, and it's very serious. And I get that this movie, I think, does an amazing job of bringing in levity and humor right when it needs to. But I will say, like, going right from that moment to that scene of, like, Tony Stark and Nebula playing the stupid fold football game. I don't know, that I bumped on that. I was like,
really?
yeah, it felt like I just had this, like, oh my God, I'm right back at the end of Infinity War. Oh my God, okay, I'm ready. How are they going to handle this? And then we jump right into this humorous moment between them, which was great. I love that scene. Don't get me wrong.
The timing
It's
of it was
the
weird.
timing of it.
Okay.
And again, I'm bringing up things that are just nitpicky things I bumped on, especially in my first showing. And again, in the second showing, I'm not saying they were fixed. It was just, okay, I'm just not as bothered by them. That's what I mean.
Gotcha.
But stuff like that. And then, their whole, like, okay, we're going to travel back in time to get these stones. And I know what the reaction to what I'm about to say would be. This is a 3-hour movie. It's not like you could have spent more time on them traveling around to go and revisit basically the past films to get all these stones. But at the same time, I wish they could have, because it felt too fast. It felt too easy. They were like going back to New York, and they were going, to, the first Guardians of the Galaxy film. And it just felt like they were able to grab this stuff, no problem, other than they have that one hiccup with
The Cube
and Loki. But even that is just a quick, oh, well, we'll go do this instead, and boom, it's done. Like, and yes, it brings these great moments when Cap sees Peggy again for the first time in forever, and this moment between Tony and his father. And those are all great moments to see, but the whole thing just felt almost
too simple.
And the moment it seems like there's going to be a little drama involved, it's not even like the Loki thing. It's just like, oh shit, like they
have to come up with plan B here.
What are they going to do? Like, it doesn't even involve Loki. I mean,
well, because it's not like there's a tracker on it or on Loki or on the cube. Like, fucking A, we don't know where Loki went. Like, he just went. Like, he could be Neptune, third sun or something, third moon. Like, we have no idea where Loki went at this point. So I know what you're saying. It kind of loses a little bit of gravitas in how they wind up getting the stones. Except for the Soul Stone. That still was rough to watch, even though I knew exactly how that scene was going to play out.
Yeah.
That scene still was rough. But, yeah, I know what you're saying. And, yeah, but I think it's interesting because they go back to 1970, and I think it's that moment that Cap really realizes what he actually wants. And I think he has this moment of he feels he's really realizing that it's the loss of Peggy, and this is it. This is his moment, and he realizes, if I get through this is what I want. Like, you could tell, like, and I really, I caught it the first time, but I will say that the second viewing, I was definitely more like, this is definitely the moment he makes this decision. It's not a decision he makes later. He made this decision then. That was, you can tell, like, it was there. Like, the intention to go back to her was there from that moment on. And so I thought that was really great. And then I think I really enjoyed Tony wrapping things up with his dad, because before his dad's death, they had a fight. It was a great moment. And then his parents died. And so I think for him, this was a way to end things on a better note with his father for him emotionally. And it was just really nice to watch that and to see, like, his father gushing over him in a way, like he's not even born, he's gushing over him. And he was just, it might have been something he never really knew, that his dad really actually felt that way. And I think that was really nice. I really liked it a lot. And so it was kind of easy in a way, I think, for most of the stones, but for pacing of the film, I think it's fine.
I guess what what ends up happening is instead of having a movie where it has this kind of plot that involves a lot of roadblocks for them, I mean, it most of the movie feels more like it is really just, okay, this movie is going to do its best to pay homage to the entire MCU, and we're going to basically sit back and enjoy somewhat reliving everything we've seen, and that's what makes the movie great.
Yeah.
But I definitely went into the movie knowing that was going to be an aspect, but not as big of an aspect as it ended up being. I was expecting a little more drama, and there's not quite as much. And again, I don't know why I keep saying this. I feel like it comes across like I'm harping on the film, and I'm not. Like, I really enjoyed the movie a lot, but these are just things where I'm like, I'm not saying I have an answer. I just wish.
Well, here's my big thing. This was my big bump, we'll say, in the road.
Okay.
They get to the whole 5 years later thing, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say.
I'm curious if it's the same thing as actually this is something I bumped onto.
So here's what I'm going to say. I get it. People are heartbroken. People are wrenched. This has been effed up. Mm-hmm. They're trying to rebuild a semblance of life again. It was just really damn depressing. And like to a point that it was like over exaggeratedly depressing. And I'm like, really? Like, this is 5 years later, and this is still like, we were literally basically still captured by this moment. And it just felt like there was a lot of scenes that just drug on, like the scene, honestly, between Natasha and Cap kind of went on a little longer than I think it should have. Like, I just felt like a lot of the conversations, the tone was so somber, and I get why it's somber. I'm not saying I don't get why it's somber. I'm not saying I'm heartless and everything needs to be happy and cheerful.
Come on, everybody, move on.
Move on. Be happy.
But in a way,
it was like, okay, can we get to some point here? Like, it really was like, I
want to say I agree in that. Not that it was still like everything is too depressing 5 years later. It's that it didn't quite seem realistic to me. Like,
I agree with that completely.
I'm going to repeat some of the things you just said in that, yes, with 50% of the population disappearing, that
mess us up.
That is a major, major deal. It's not just like suddenly every Starbucks opens 2 weeks later. I mean, obviously, the economy, you have to figure out everything. Man. Like, you only have half the people now.
Which is why, like, there was trash in the streets of San Francisco as Scott's walking down this, like, you know, I get it. Like, so infrastructure here.
I get it. But there is something about when jumping forward 5 years, it did somewhat feel like things hadn't moved on enough. It didn't seem quite realistic to me. Like that moment of him and he's walking down the street and he sees the kid right by on the bike and he's like, stops the kid like, hey, what happened here? And of course, I get it from him. He just showed up. But anyway, like the kid's reaction, just the look of everything, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, again, I get it, but it feels like this feels like maybe 2 years later, like a year later.
Right. Like it was like
2 years later,
wow,
I could see it still like this.
There's really not even cars moving on the streets.
Not 5 years later. It doesn't seem right. And I get that there's going to be certain things that are not priority, like Met's, Citi Field still looks destroyed because you know what? We're not worried about sports right now, and I get that. But there's other aspects. It does seem like things would have been cleaned up a little more than they are by now. Like, I don't know.
It was interesting. The priority was the memorial overlooking the bay. And it was like, the memorial looks amazing, guys. Did you look at your city?
That's funny. I've noticed you reacted to that the first showing.
I did.
And I guess that's why.
That was my reaction.
I was curious
like,
why
wow.
you reacted.
So the memorial is clearly far more important than absolutely, I don't know anything else happening.
Moving on with our society. Like, I get it now.
It's an interesting take on our American way. I wouldn't even say humanity's way. I'm going to say American way.
So
it was interesting. It was interesting, almost like
thinking about the 5 year jump. How is it the van got into a storage unit?
So I had the same thought too. And the only thing I could think of is because clearly Cassie's mom, I guess, makes it, right? Scott's ex-wife.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So my theory is at some...
Well, does she? Do we know the mom made it?
I don't
I mean,
know.
we know Cassie made it, but...
Right.
Anyway.
I don't know. I feel like he would have seen her name on the wall if she hadn't made it.
Okay.
And the fact that Cassie's still in that house...
Right.
leads me to believe in mom. Anyways, here's my theory on this. So my theory is that at some point somebody goes up on that rooftop and at some point plates are run and then they notify what's her name and she's got to deal with his old apartment and all his stuff. So she just puts everything to a storage unit because I think people are still holding on to hope.
That makes sense.
And I think people are kind of slowly putting things.
I like that. Okay. That works for me.
That's my theory on that.
Good. I like it. Because, I mean, I just hadn't considered that. I don't know. I was thinking about it. I didn't really think about it the first showing, and it was today when we saw it the second time. I was like, so how did this stuff get in here? Like, why would it be in this storage unit? I don't understand. But that makes sense.
Somebody stumbled upon it eventually
Right.
at some point on the rooftop, and then they ran plates. That's all I got.
Because, like, even the unit is labeled Lang, I think.
Lang apartment, Lang kitchen, Lang this, Lang that. Like, so.
Like on the chain fleek fence, it
That's
said
it says
Lang on
Lang,
it.
right?
Yeah,
So all I could think is maybe she put all the stuff in there and she's holding out hope that Scott will show up, not for her, but for Cassie. Like she's hoping Scott's gonna come back. So let's not get rid of Scott's stuff. We're just gonna put it in storage.
But what I was gonna say too, with the 5-year jump, with my first showing, I bumped on like how emotional still that
Nat is.
Yeah, that she's, and I bumped on that in the first showing, but in the second showing, I get that she's just handling things differently. You see how Cap is handling things, and he's moving on, and he's doing the group, and he's trying to look on the bright side of things, but everyone is different, and she, I guess, is just one of these people that's not, but it worked for me better in the second showing because I kind of saw better that arc of then once she has a purpose, we can find a way to fix this, like she just perks up.
Oh yeah.
And that moment of like they're getting ready to travel back in time and she's like, see you guys in a minute, which is even harder to watch now knowing what happens to her. Then I don't have as much of a problem with that now.
Yeah,
that's kind of fixed for me.
It was harder watching it that second time when she says see you in a minute and I'm like, she didn't say nobody said goodbye to her.
Right.
Like, oh.
And she's just so happy, like that moment where they're testing with Scott
like,
Lang and Hulk is testing her the first time, and she's just
she
like,
knows.
"All right, we're gonna make this work now."
She's so like, this is happening. We're gonna pull this off. Like she knows it, like in her depths of her soul. She's like, we're pulling this off. This is happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's. Yeah. No, and again, getting the stones back. That whole scene with them on Vormir, like it was rough watching it unfold, and it was just funny because there's this moment Clint's kind of like saying goodbye to her, and I'm like, he's not gonna let her jump, and then he shoves her to the ground, and then I'm like, they're literally gonna fight this out like the whole way, like I'm like, and then he jumps, and so I guess for some people maybe who don't really know any, all the caveats to their relationship. I'm sure some people saw him jump and they were kind of like, oh, he's doing it. And I'm like, oh, hell no, she's jumping. Like she's going to die. Like it was almost gut wrenching to be like, no, Nat's going to take one for the team. Like she's doing it. Like this is her whole purpose. She helped bring the group together and she's going to help keep the group together by her sacrificing herself.
Right.
Anyways, I can go on and on and on
about
this whole movie.
And we can talk about so much more stuff and we are running out of time, but there's one more thing I want to ask you, your take on.
I think you're going to know what you're going to say.
Well, now I'm curious. What do you think I'm going to say?
The God of Lightning.
Oh, Thor?
Yeah.
Oh, no, actually.
Okay. Well, then what were you going to ask
And
me?
I thought Thor was great, by the way, real quick.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's interesting watching him in his state the whole movie. I know you were disappointed.
Melted ice cream.
But I thought he's fantastic. Like Chris Hemsworth is Thor, and it's great to see that it looks like we will get more Thor.
I will say, amazing. I'm very happy because Thor is like my favorite.
The Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 can't come soon enough.
I'm super excited. Crazy excited.
That scene at the end of the movie with them, like, between, like, who's in charge is is
that
fantastic.
scene is amazing
It's
to watch.
amazing.
The film. And Chris Hemsworth in that scene is so
so good.
ridiculously good. And seeing it even like the second showing, I was like, this is still so good to watch.
Is perfect.
This is so amazing.
Now,
to
what
watch.
I was going to say is talking about movies in the future. Now I'm left wondering, okay, so Spider-Man, Far From Home.
Yeah, okay.
So am I to understand that basically not only, obviously we know Spider-Man was dusted. We've traveled, it's been 5 years, and now I guess he's going back to high school. But I mean, we see in Far From Home that basically the main characters of his class are all there. Were they all dusted? I mean, I guess so.
This is the moment I had actually in the end of the film. He walks into high school and sees his best friend.
So
and
I assume they were both dusted?
So they were both dusted. And then again, and I get it. If you got dusted and you come back at the exact same age you are, you still got to finish high school.
That I get.
And you're going to be in the same grade as your baby sister, who now is the same age as you. Whatever.
No, I get that.
Weird.
I'm saying it seems a little too convenient that all of these main characters of the class all were dusted.
all the Spider-Man people that we know are all dusted, and they all wind up going back to high
after
school.
the first showing. I didn't even think about it when that scene popped up, and it wasn't until today that I was like, well, wait a second. Like, his friend, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name.
I can't remember that character's name.
He sees him, and it's almost like the way he reacts to Spider-Man, Peter Parker, is like, oh man, you're back. Almost like he's been there the whole time.
Right.
That's how he reacts to me.
I agree.
But I'm like, but wait, if he's been here the whole time, he wouldn't be in high school anymore.
He wouldn't be this age. He'd be older.
He would look different now.
Right.
Like, when you're a teenager, a year or two, you look very different. Like, no. And
right. So is it a moment that, since I don't want to dive too far here, but is it a moment where he's actually having the realization of, you got dusted too, so you're not older than me, and we're both back in high school.
That's it.
Maybe that's what the reaction's supposed to be.
I could see that.
We're gonna do this still together. This is still gonna be our thing. You're not 5 years older than me.
I like that.
We're the same age. Maybe that's what his reaction is.
Maybe that's what it is.
See, if we think this out, we'll figure it out.
But still, it does seem...
Oh, it comes out that way.
No, not that. I'm just saying, going back to now the next Spider-Man movie, it seems extremely convenient that, okay, I guess all of these characters went... It seems like you would even have one of these other characters that's not as important to... It's not like, what's her, MJ, but it's not really...
It's MJ.
It's MJ. Well, she's not really MJ, is my understanding. Anyway.
No, they named her differently, but...
Yeah, but anyway, it would seem like, she would still want to be in part of it. But you would think maybe, like, the kid that's the asshole would maybe be older now or something. I don't know. Like...
I'm with you.
Just
it's
have
very
one
convenient.
It seems like all of them, like...
It's very convenient that, like, basically the 7 kids that we kind of see throughout the first film all were dust. I mean, but... The whole thing was an odds game, I guess,
Yeah.
According to, the internet, I got snapped, so.
Yeah.
Did you?
On Reddit, I was.
Were you snapped?
I went to the Soul Stone on Reddit, yeah.
Did you? Yeah, I did. Yeah. And it was just...
Anyway. Anything else really quick you're dying to talk about?
There's so many things, and it's all the little things of... the nerds get that are really into comics or whatever, but I had a moment, and I'll admit I'm not exactly excited about Thor being fat. It kind of makes me sad. But overall, I really liked Thor. I thought Thor was really great in this film. I like that he's having his own issues and his own struggles with everything. But I will say, like, as the battle's coming in, and it's Thor and Tony and Cap, and they're saying they're getting ready to go down and battle Thanos, and he gets Mjolnir and he gets Stormbreaker, and then he clashes them together, and he becomes like good-looking fat Thor.
Yes.
And they all go down there and then battle, and then Cap picks up Mjolnir. And there's a move, and Thor's done it in other films, and I've always enjoyed this move. And it's a move that, for me, is in a video game. It was a PlayStation 2 video game with all the Marvel characters. And it's this move where he shoots the hammer up to the sky. And I know he does it in the comics, too. I'm saying the video game, but that's just how I relate
That's how you relate to it, yeah.
So he holds the hammer up, lightning goes up, and then lightning comes down on the person and just showers them in lightning and just completely collapses and shoves them into the earth, and they're basically done. And it's this really awesome move in the video game when you get the selection just right and they do it. Yeah, you basically just killed anybody that you were trying to fight, and it's just like, oh, this is the best move. Like, I love it when I do this with Thor. It's amazing. Right. And it's always good to watch Thor do it, but to watch Cap do it in the movie, I was like, oh, this is so satisfying on so many levels. Like, I was like, oh my god, like Cap puts the hammer up and like the lightning goes up and I'm like, and I know it's happening, and then I see the lightning come down on Thanos and I'm like, oh god, this feels so good. And the sad thing is, it felt just as satisfying in the second viewing. Sad. I was so happy. I was like,
it's not sad.
This makes me feel so good on so many levels. It's like in the way I think about it is because in the video game, it's such an awesome kill moment in the video game against your opponent. Right. And so it's like, oh, it feels so good. So nice.
It's not. No, that's awesome.
They're giving Thanos absolutely everything, and that's another point. They're going at Thanos knowing Thanos is going to kill them. Like, they're going at it with everything they can to try to get to kill him, knowing that I'm going to give everything I can and it could result in my death.
Right.
Like, because they're that point, they're going to kill him. Like, it's going to happen.
Right.
So it's just more proof of their level of commitment at this point. I don't know. I really like this movie. I'm very happy with it.
No, I'm very happy with it too. And I know I said we were going to go, but the one thing I said we were going to touch on and we haven't. Overall, I actually really like how they handled time travel. I'm very picky about time travel in movies. I've said this before on Flicker Effect, on the podcast and such. I get really nervous when time travel is used in movies. Yeah. And because
which they point out,
it opens up that box of, oh man, like, how do I not look to future films and go, well, they could just fix this by traveling in time, right? Like, go back and fix it. But the way they handle time travel, it kind of gets rid of that idea. Like,
right.
You know, and they handle it in such a way where they basically say, hey, the way basically every other movie is handled it is bullshit. And I like how they start throwing out all these movies, Star Trek, and
I like just the way they handle it as a whole. Even Scott pitching the idea, he's like, I realize this is crazy, guys, but I think this is the way we got to figure this. This is the only way we're able to do this. Like, it's like the whole even idea of it is even kind of like, oh god, this is nuts. Like, I can't even believe we're at this point where like we're resorting to time travel, like, and that's what does it. And I like that they're constantly throwing out the movies of how they fail and whatever. And then I even like the moment with Bruce and the Sorcerer Supreme, and it's almost like this moment. She even helps that moment with her and Bruce clarifies it even further for anybody else who wasn't quite picking up on how this whole time travel and timeline thing is working. Her doing that, you know, showing this is our timeline, this is what we're running on, and if you do this, it flicks it off this way. And then he explains, but if we put it right back in the exact same spot, it's like it never even happened. And so it's like this whole explanation of what's going on. And I was like, it's awesome because they explain it even further. Like, if you still are kind of going, wait, how's this happening? There's that moment, and it's really great to see how they explain it.
Right. No, I agree. I like how time travel was used in the movie. My only bump on it is still, unless someone wants to explain it to me where it makes sense, but Cap's ending, to me, does not play into the rules that were given. You know, the way it seems explained to me in the movie, if he went into the past, it doesn't mean he would pop up on this timeline. Then, like suddenly he was always there.
He'd be in his own timeline.
On his own timeline.
Which is exactly what Sorcerer Supreme was saying. You've now pushes on to a different course.
Yeah, no, because, you know, they have that whole comment where, you know, Bruce is explaining, oh, just because you go in the past and change something doesn't mean it changes our reality here. So him going back in time and staying there, to me, means then he wouldn't then appear like he was always back there. Like, no, it doesn't. I mean, again, I am open to an explanation where that makes sense, and if it does, then that's great.
I'm super cool with it.
I'm super cool with it, and I'm also saying this, like, it doesn't bother me enough to really annoy me. I love his ending, so I'm fine with it. But it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, when you start using time travel And you're going to make a set of rules. I feel like, okay, I'm going to somewhat buy into these rules. And I think the way they handle it too is such where it tries to kind of tell the audience, like, don't think about it too much. And that works. And I mean, and then with that in mind, the Cap ending works even more. When just don't think about it too much.
Right.
But I can't help myself. I'm like, okay,
I'm with you.
Because, especially after a second showing, I'm like, with the Sorcerer Supreme explaining things, I'm like, okay, I even get it even more now. Okay, this all works.
Right. I mean, I was even kind of questioning the first showing, and it gets explained, but I will say even the second showing made me feel a lot better about the situation. Basically, when they were testing Scott Lang, and Scott Lang comes back as 12-year-old Scott Lang, and then he goes back as 90-year-old Scott Lang, and then he comes back as infant Scott Lang. And then the first thing Tony says is he's like, so basically, instead of pushing Scott through time, you push time through Scott. And I was like, huh, that makes sense now. Okay, because I was even kind of going, so what WTF is happening right now? And it was like, Tony literally says that. And I was like, I'm super okay with this answer. This makes perfect logical sense to me at this moment. I'm going with it. I'm running with it.
That was a moment too. I didn't think too much about it. Just like, yeah, it's funny, and maybe it does or doesn't make logical sense. Not that time travel is real,
right?
But it worked.
It'll be interesting to see what Kyle on Nerdist does with this on Sci-File.
Yes.
Because he basically saw this on Monday night, and like the first thing he shot out on his Twitter was, I have a ridiculous amount of sciencing to do for the next 2 weeks to get ready to start talking science about Endgame. He's like, I'm going to be working on this basically all the... He's like, I have a ridiculous amount of work ahead of me, because he's always trying to prove the science behind everything that happens in these kind of films. And so I have a very strong feeling Kyle's going to have a very excellent podcast just on time travel, just with Endgame. And I think it'll be really interesting to watch.
Right. Well, with that, I think it's time to wrap things up, unfortunately. It's been fun. And you know what? It's not over, because tomorrow night we're going to be basically doing this all over again.
We get to gush with Bobby and Yasha. I'm so excited.
So, go and check out Flicker Effect as well. We will be talking about Avengers Endgame, basically that whole episode. What is that? I think episode 292. I think it is.
We're getting up there. Almost the 300.
So look for that. And we'll be talking about Avengers Endgame with Bobby and Yasha. I'm sure we'll start things off without spoilers, but most of that episode we'll be talking about spoilers.
We'll go into spoilers.
And if you're still watching this at this point, you obviously don't mind spoilers. So that doesn't really matter to you.
And if you've already seen Endgame, go see it again and again. All right. I promise you, the second viewing is still just as awesome, if not even better, as crazy as that sounds.
No, it's
in my
great.
Opinion.
And again, if I ever came across in this episode, like I was harping on things, just these little things I thought about as I watched it, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Even more the second time. There was, I wish I had the tweet in front of me. There was, I think it was Perry Nemiroff over on Collider. Bobby and I had talked about this off air. We were kind of interested in her tweet after she saw it Monday night. And it seemed like she was kind of being maybe somewhat critical of the film, because she just kind of said, this movie is, in all caps, a lot. And it was like, you could tell she was like, I have to kind of sit with this. And I don't have it in front of me. I can't read it. But she mentioned, I think, how much she loved the third act. But then after watching it a second time, she tweeted again, and it all kind of came together for her, and she absolutely loved it. And now, after my experience, I totally get her first tweet. Because, yes, this movie is a lot.
It's a lot to unbox.
And, even though I may still bump on little things, even after my second viewing, it works for me better after a second viewing, for sure.
Yeah.
So, if you loved it, but you're also bothered by things after one viewing...
see it again.
After you see it again, I'm so happy I saw it again before we came to talk about it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So go check out the movie again, and check out Flicker Effect once that drops, and we'll be talking about the movie there. As always, we'd love to hear back from you, and you can email us with your questions and comments at feedback@flickereffect.com, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can post comments right there on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
talk to us.
Yeah, talk to us, please. With that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening.
And watching.
and watching.